Good morning, everyone. I know that I'm not the face that you're used to seeing, but I hope you don't mind that I hijacked the message for today. It's Pastor Appreciation Month, and we thought that for today we would give Pastor Brent the Sunday off. If you don't know me, my name is Cheryl Reese, and I am the youth director at Rusagonis Baptist Church. So in all fairness, you guys aren't who I'm used to talking to either. And if I'm really being honest, public speaking makes my legs shake and my stomach nauseous. But since I felt like I was supposed to do this, I'm just going to pretend that I'm talking to teenagers so that it doesn't bother me so much. I know it's been a while for some of you since you were teenagers, but just bear with me. I wasn't sure what to talk about today. A few different ideas had floated through my head. I considered talking about what it means to be a servant or to have a servant's heart. Building on that and kind of showing how Brent has led us by example in that way in the past. In ways such as coming to the church on a snowy Wednesday and shoveling out the walkway for a youth group, and clearing windshields of multiple cars in the parking lot instead of just his own, and checking how tight lug nuts are on tires for someone who was scared of having a repeat tire flying off incident, and in many other little ways. All the things that sometimes go unnoticed but really show a servant's heart. Then I thought about talking about loving God and loving people. How loving people means loving all people, not just the ones who are easy to love, something that I admittedly struggle with sometimes. And then I started actually writing a message about youth and the connections that we can make with them. It's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about how they're the future of the church, and that deep down they want the same things that we as adults do. They want to be known and seen and unconditionally loved. All of these are, in my limited opinion, good topics. And I really thought if you'd asked me a week ago what I'd be talking about, it would have been the youth topic. But then on Monday, I prayed and reflected and admittedly majorly stressed out about what to say because honestly, I'm not that great with the deadline and it was coming up quick. I started to try to continue from where I had left off in my own notes with talking about youth, and I got stuck. And then I procrastinated. I laid around on my couch for a while until it was time to get up and head for the door to get my son Ryan off the bus. When I opened the door, I was struck with the beauty in front of me, the beautifully colored leaves both on the ground and on the trees. I took a deep breath in and smelled the undeniable smells of fall, the smell of leaves decomposing and wood fires, and I felt the coolness of the wind on my cheeks. I remember thinking, man, it's great to live in a place that has different seasons. Now, here's where I pause and explain something. I don't do subtle very well. And so over the years, I've had many instances of talking with God where when he answers my prayers, he answers in the still small voice and in the whispers. But I like to think that he knows me pretty well. And that's how he's known that sometimes I have needed a more blatantly obvious answer to prayer. For example, there have been times when I've been praying about an issue in the car, and after turning on the radio, the next song applies directly to whatever I was praying about. Or when a few years ago, my husband Joel and I were shopping for our van after our car at the time had been totaled in a car accident. He and I had taken the day off to look at a few options and test drive them. We'd gone in and I think we'd even started the paperwork for our van that we have now, but we weren't feeling 100% confident that it was the right decision. I remember we had parked somewhere and we took a minute and we prayed and we asked God to help us know if we were making the right decision and help us to be at peace with it. Now, Joel and I had talked with Brent about how we were looking for a van to replace our car, but as far as I know, he had no knowledge that we were out that day test driving them. But like I said, pretty sure God knows I don't do subtle well. And as we sat and prayed in our car, legitimately about 20 seconds after we said amen, Joel's phone pings with an alert from a text message. It's Brent sending him the link to the exact van we had started the paperwork on. We burst out laughing and thanked God for his unusually speedy answer to prayer. Now, I feel like I should clarify that just like anyone else, I don't get all my prayers answered immediately. They're also not always the answers that I want, and sometimes it feels like they haven't been answered at all. I'm just saying that there are times that God has known that I need to be whacked over the head with an answer in order to really get it. And Monday, when the thought of how it was a beautiful season entered my head, the very next thought was of the verses in Ecclesiastes 3 about the different seasons in life, and here we are. In case you're not familiar with them, or it's been a while, Ecclesiastes 3 verses 1 to 8 say, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace." Something that I find interesting about these verses is how they're laid out beside essentially their opposite. You know, autumn, or fall as we more commonly call it, is full of some of seemingly opposing things, most obvious being the gorgeous colors on the leaves of our trees, colors that appear as those leaves are actually changing and dying. Then there's the coolness in the air versus the warmth of sweaters and wood fires, harvesting foods and prepping them to store for winter. Animals that migrate and animals that fatten themselves up in preparation for hibernation. In fact, fall is perhaps one of the most well-rounded and liked seasons for a variety of different reasons. Some of us like fall because it's hunting season. I'd venture that for others, that's something that they don't like about it. Some of us are happy to see the heat of summer replaced with some cooler temperatures. Still others like the apple picking and all the delicious foods. For some, it's because of a love of all things pumpkin spice, and others simply love the beauty of the changing leaves. And I'm sure there are people who also don't like fall at all. School starts up again, kids tend to get sick a lot, life gets overly hectic, and some people might just have bad memories associated with this time of year. Whether you like it or not doesn't really matter in the end. Fall only lasts for a few months before we're on to the next season, and people will have mixed feelings about that season as well. Realistically, we can each probably think of something we like and don't like about each season. I've named a bunch for fall, because that's the season that we're in. Winter is really cold and way too long, but hey, we get Christmas. Spring is wet and muddy, but it's also full of new life everywhere you look. Summer is beautifully hot and sunny, but most of us have jobs and don't get to enjoy as much of the weather as we'd like. Whatever you like or don't like about a season, they're temporary. We move through the literal outdoor weather seasons just as we move through different seasons of our lives. Some seasons of our lives can be dark and cold like winter. Some are bright and warm like summer, or full of new possibilities like spring, or beautiful change and prepping for something new like fall. I've recently been in a bit of a fall season that's like that. One of a lot of change and waiting. My back has had some issues, and as a result, I'm unable to do the job that I trained for 12 years ago. It's a bit frightening to have to start something new after all this time. There's a lot of work involved in changing direction, and it's taken me until now to really see the beauty of it, to change my perspective, and instead of focusing on the death of one career, to see the preparation and rest that God has given me while He helps me to figure out what's next. Now, I don't know what season of life each of you are going through. I do know that everyone's experience on earth is unique, and we go through different seasons of life at different times. Sure, we share some experiences with others, but no two people have exactly the same journey. Isn't it encouraging then that no matter the season that we find ourselves in, whether in a time of mourning or dancing, a time of weeping or laughing, whichever constantly changing season of life that we're in, that we can rest assured with the knowledge from Hebrews 13:8, which says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Change is a part of life. We were made to grow and to develop and change. And the world that we live in is ever changing. But God doesn't change. He's the same God that created the universe and everything in it. The same God who shut the mouths of lions. The same God who led his people out of Egypt. The same God who sent his son to the earth as a baby to grow up, to die, and to be raised to life again. He's the same now as he ever was. And even more amazing than the fact that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever is the fact that he loves us and cares about what happens in our lives. He cares about the seasons that we go through. In fact, 1 Peter 5:7 tells us to give your cares to God because he cares for you. Have you ever really stopped to think about that? God cares about you specifically. Jesus, who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, cares about you and what's going on in your life. He's the same God who created the universe. You know, there's this verse in Genesis that I find really funny. It's in Genesis 1, right in the creation account. Genesis 1:16 says, God made two great lights, the larger one to govern the day, and the smaller one to govern the night. He also made the stars. And that's all that's said about the stars in the creation account. There's been enough research now that we're only starting to grasp just how big the universe is and what we're looking at when we look at the stars. And it's incredibly large and amazing. But it's almost like a side note verse. He also made the stars. That's how big God is. He made the stars and he cares about you. It's kind of mind-blowing, really. In the book of Luke, it tells us that the very hairs on our head are numbered. Talk about something that changes. I'll never forget hearing the verse for a first time as a kid and actually sitting and trying to count the hairs on my head. I gave up really quickly. But God, who created the universe, knows the number of hairs on your head. He loves you, and he's also promised not to leave you. He's with you through every season that you go through. The ups and the downs, the springs, summers, falls, and winters, both literally and figuratively, and he doesn't change. He's our anchor, the one thing that we can be absolutely sure of. He is the same. He loves us, and he's with us, always. Now I'm going to close in prayer, but before I do, I just want to say that Pastor Brent and Mrs. Wendy have spent 20 years of changing seasons leading our church family, and they'll be with us for as long as God keeps them here. We are a very blessed church family to have them, and I know that I speak for everyone here when I say that we are thankful for each and every season that we have with them. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to recognize and to appreciate 20 years of having Brent and Wendy lead our church family. God, I ask that you would bless them and their family. God, I thank you for the ever-changing seasons of life and for the assurance that you don't change, that you're the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that you love us. Please be with each of us in the coming week as we navigate whatever season we're walking through. In Jesus' name, amen.